Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. Welcome to another episode of Business Place. I am your host, Simon. This script is written by our fantastic writer, Danny. The video you're watching right now has been edited at some future point by Sam. Thank these people below. Not me. You don't need to thank me. You can thank the others if you want to. You don't have to. Today's video, how Ikea took over the world. Danny writes these, I read them. Let's crack on, shall we? The screaming and sobbing recriminations usually subside before bedtime. What are we talking about? It was only meant to take a couple of hours at most. The instructions looked, I know what we're talking about. The instructions looked reasonably simple, but it's not until 7 hours later that your latest self-assembly purchase from Ikea is finally complete. There are lots of pieces left over, but you've convinced yourself that it's fine. They were probably just spares. I have to say, I disagree with Danny. I've assembled various types of furniture from various different companies. Ikea is by far the easiest. I put ones together where it's the instructions are written in half Chinese, English, but it's clearly written by someone who has used Google Translate, or it's just there are extra bits. Ikea is a dream of easy furniture assembly. One of the legs is the wrong way round, but you've decided that this just adds a dollop of distinctive character to the piece. The room is still haunted by the echoes of your screams, but this doesn't make any sense. And you vowed never to try anything like this again, but you will. It's not Ikea furniture doesn't piss me off like this. Technology pisses me off like this. I was trying to set up the Sonos system in my house because it kept not working this morning. And I'm literally none of this makes sense. Why? Oh, it did used to be like this. Flat pack furniture didn't really take off in the US or the UK until Ikea opened their first stores here in the 1980s and beyond. Back in the olden black and white days, people used to either get their furniture fully formed, delivered, or mess about trying to strap their bookcases and dining room tables to the roof of their car. Yeah, also, whenever I've got furniture delivered that isn't a self-assembly job from Ikea, it's always way more expensive because they have to drop I've got a dining room table which weighs 400 kilograms. It's just one giant piece of wood. And the poor guys who are delivering this, they were like, how are we gonna get this in your house? Oh, stuff from Ikea is just easier. Very small Swedish company, founded by a 17-year-old in 1943, changed all of that, but Ikea was playing a very long game. Today, there are 433 Ikea stores operating in 52 countries around the globe, pulling in an annual revenue of about $41 billion. Wowee. The Ikea catalogue has developed into one of the biggest publications of modern times, despite it largely just being a collection of pretty pictures. Hundreds of millions of copies are printed every year, more than double the number of Bibles. God damn, I can believe this. But is it really the case anymore? I go to Ikea fairly often, because of course I do. Do they even have catalogues anymore? I thought it was just all online. Normally, I remember being a kid, you'd walk in, there'd be a giant bin of the things. Do they have these anymore? So many retail giants have spectacularly failed to repeat home soil success in overseas territories. So how did a small Swedish business manage so triumphantly to take over the world? If we're being incredibly cynical, we could suggest that it's because a young man with fascist connections, built an environmentally disastrous tax-dodging business that sold really cheap stuff. Oh no. Whenever I imagine Ikea, I imagine Swedish people, it's all peace and love and social care. Don't let me down, Ikea. Don't be a fascist company. I already feel bad about owning gloves from Hugo Boss, the original but that would be quite unfair, so we won't. Despite a few troubling concerns, which the company is refreshingly honest about, the real Allen key to Ikea's success. The fact that the company has largely just been very patient and very clever. The story behind Sweden's biggest export since ABBA and pornography begins with a 5-year-old kid called Ingvar Kamprad. That's a cool name. Kamprad. Raised on a farm called Emtart. Near the small village of Gunyard in southern Sweden, Ingvar, oh my god, help me. Ingvar started out, his name sounds like a piece of Ikea furniture, which I guess isn't super surprising, is it? By the age of 7, he started selling matches to his neighbors in 1931. By the age of 7, he was cycling to Stockholm, where he realized that he could buy matches cheaply in bulk and then sell them immediately back home for bigger profits. Cool. By the age of 12, he's expanded his operations into Nazi Germany. Just kidding. He'd expanded his operations to sell greetings card, Christmas decorations, pens and pencils. By the age of 17, he launched the Ikea business, naming it after his own initials. Wasn't his name Emtart? Oh no, that was where he grew up. Ingvar Kamprad So who's the E and the A? Followed by the first letters of the farming village in which he grew up. Oh, there you go. So now we know. Fascinating. Although at this point, he was still messing about selling pens and watches and nylon stockings and shit. Ingvar eventually moved on to the idea of selling fully assembled furniture by mail order. The original IKEA catalogue, printed in 1951, was actually the only way of ordering Ingvar's furniture at the time, as it appeared long before the opening of the first IKEA store in Älmhult in Sweden in 1958. If you're still wondering about Ingvar's connection with fascism, I definitely was. This may be a good time to pause and address it, as this is something that relates to his younger years, although it wasn't revealed to the public until much later. Back in the 1940s, when Ingvar was still a teenager, he had become good friends with Swedish fascist Per Ingdahl, and he joined the New Swedish Movement. The New Swedish Movement sounds like a nice name for the fascist party. It's like, yeah, when you and what's that Dutch politician? What's his party? Like the New Freedom Party or whatever. It's like anything like, you know, it's like the least democratic countries have the most democratics in their name. Like the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, it's, you know, not democratic and not about the people. Although this is often brushed off as the accidental byproduct of a friendship, it's known that Ingvar helped raise funds and recruit new members to the fascist organization. The Swedish Security Service even had a file on him, simply titled Fascist. That's not good. When you're like, yeah, what's it, you know, you look in the government's books about you and it's not like, you know, grew up here, name is this. It's just fascist. Ingvar never denied this, and he later claimed that although he had long admitted to flirting with racism as a youth, there had since been no Nazi sympathizing thoughts in his head whatsoever. So he just like turned off his racism switch. It's like Hugo Boss all over again, it is. If you're getting my references to Hugo Boss, we had an episode about this previously, and my gloves that were accidentally made by Hugo Boss, and I didn't even know. I'm dreading the day that it's revealed that Ronald McDonald used to serve as a regimental sergeant major for the SS. Back to the main story. I'm really worried that, you know, one of my favorite foods is Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm really worried that it'll turn out that he wasn't a Kentucky colonel, he was actually a colonel in the SS. He wasn't. Please don't sue me, KFC. I would be sad, less about the suing and about the fact that I would still spend money in your restaurants while you're suing the out of me. Back to the main story. Ironically, IKEA's move to flatback furniture in the 1950s was largely down to the fact that the Swedish retail competitors were applying pressure to local furniture suppliers to boycott Ingvar's company. They were scared that IKEA was threatening to take over the Swedish furniture industry with their pesky cheap prices. Goddamn competition, ruining my business. Oh, the flatpack idea came to IKEA draftsman Gillis Lundgren when he was struggling to get a love-it table into the car of a customer. Really? That's awesome. He eventually decided to remove the legs of the table and suddenly had a light bulb moment. The company could sell fully assembled furniture to customers, then hack them to pieces, shove them all into the customer's car, broken, and then run away. Fortunately, they had an even better idea. The company could just sell the components to the furniture, which the customer could assemble themselves at home. It's really amazing. Like, sometimes I'm like, wow, it really took us to like the 1980s to think of this? Not the 1980s. 1950s, sorry. When Ingvar sourced cheap components from Poland, he was able to stick two fingers up at the local suppliers that were boycotting him. Hopefully, just two fingers rather than a Nazi salute. Steady on, Danny. The concept of flatpack was born, and the shape of households across the globe was changed forever. Yeah, now households have become like generic to a communist degree. It's like, oh yeah, where's all this stuff come from? Yep, IKEA. And you go to someone else's house, oh, that's a really nice sofa. Same as my sofa. In the days before, flatpack furniture was generally seen as expensive and permanent fixtures in your household that would be passed from generation to generation. My grandma and granddad had the same dining room table for 60 years, and it got passed down to my mum and dad, who kept it for at least another 20. It wasn't even a very nice table. In fact, it was bloody hideous. Though IKEA hates the word disposable, it's fair to say that their flatpack furniture isn't really designed to last all that long. You keep it for a while until you get a bit bored of it, or until it collapses, and then you go out and buy some more. The company cleverly passes on the burden of delivery and assembly to the customers, which reduces costs dramatically. Whilst most furniture companies used to purchase boxes that would fit their furniture, IKEA preferred to design furniture that fits their boxes and then creates warehouses designed to store the boxes for maximum efficiency. I do like this business model. Like, I'm into efficiency. Like, I like recording videos and being efficient. Ikea do too. The customers might scream and shout and swear when they're trying to assemble the furniture, but they put up with it because it's so cheap and because it's so easy to buy on the spot and take home in the car. It's an almost flawless business model that pleases everybody. However, Ikea didn't seem to be in too much hurry to flex its muscles outside of Sweden. It wasn't until the 1960s that the first international stores were launched in Norway and Denmark. The 1970s saw expansion to Switzerland and Australia. It's like, whoa, that's a bit of a difference. Was it really not Austria? It was Australia? While most of Europe and the US had to wait until the 1980s. Wow, why Australia? Seems like a really far away place. It is a really far away place. It's like, where should we expand to, guys? Well, I was thinking we'd do, Norway and Denmark, they're relatively close, and Australia. Because the weather's nice? It's only in relatively recent years that Ikea has conquered China, Russia, India, and pretty much every other corner of the globe. Sadly, there's still no store in my hometown of Rotherham, which someone told me you have to pronounce Rovmagov. I'm not gonna look it up, but it was like Rovmamamama or something. It's spelt Rotherham, so whatever. And then I Googled it to see what it was about, and the top thing that comes up on Google is not the Wikipedia entry about Rotherham, but Rotherham child sex gangs. You're like, oh my god. It's like, Rotherham. The pronunciation of the name of your town is the least thing you have to worry about. So how did Ikea triumph in international expansion when the likes of Tesco and even Walmart have often suffered setbacks with massive losses by daring to set foot overseas? It all largely comes down to patience and attention to detail. We've already, and someone pointed out in the last video that I was like, I don't think Walmart's in the UK, and someone was like, sorry, not someone, everyone in the comments was somebody stupid, that's Asda, and I was like, okay, Jesus, I'm not a business expert, I just run a channel about business. You expect me to know everything about business? Or even a little? Come on, give me a break. It all largely comes down to patience and attention to detail. We've already covered the international failures of Tesco in a previous Business Blaze video, that one I just mentioned, which explained how a big part of the problem was that they tried to quickly transplant identical versions of their UK business models into places where they just didn't fit. It's the old colonialism business model. If you don't like our stuff, we'll make you like it. Ikea has an entirely different approach. The company would often spend years researching local culture before they even began to think of laying down the first brick of a new store. But that's not to say that Ikea developed a unique collection of distinctive new products for each specific country, because they didn't really do that at all. There were certainly a few exceptions and a few product tweaks here and there. For example, American Ikea beds are usually bigger, because the American people tend to be a little bit bigger. But on the whole, everything's bigger in America. But on the whole, Ikea was still flogging the same country-neutral products in every store, whether you were in the US, France, India, or the Czech Republic. It's true, I live in the Czech Republic, and I grew up in Britain, and yeah, the only thing that's different is the prices are like in pounds in the UK, and they're in Czech crowns in the Czech Republic. Everything else is almost identical. The difference was in presentation. Okay, I'm really wondering how it was different though. Every unique store and catalog was heavily rooted in the concept of displaying how Ikea's generic products would make the perfect fit for your home and your life. It wasn't just about labyrinth-like layout of stores which keeps you trapped inside a fiendish maze and encourages you to make impulse buys in fear of not being able to find a product again. It was even cleverer than that. Each international store plays on subtle local nuances to replicate the feel of a typical local home. For example, a Dutch store contains slanted ceilings to reflect local architecture. A showcase room in Japan would be complemented with tatami mats. A UK store would be littered with beer cans and vomit stains and dead cats. Oh, yeah, that's how UK stores are. It represents our culture fairly well. Czech stores, I guess there's a lot of they show a lot of the accommodation, especially on the outskirts of a city, is these old communist blocks, which are now just apartments. And they all have they're all kind of identical, and they all have this identical balcony. So quite a lot of the showrooms in there show this sort of style. It's very generic. As you would expect from communism. Everyone gets the same thing. That's gonna work out. Ikea weren't particularly interested in tailoring their products to meet local needs and expectations. They just wanted to show you how your home was already a suitable fit for their existing product range. They occasionally got things a little too right for their own good. The company was criticized for removing all traces of women from their Saudi Arabia catalog. Oh, and for dropping any photographs of gay couples from their Russian catalog. Look, I get why you're doing it, Ikea, because, you're not the up ones here. Simon, stop discriminating. In this case, I'm pretty okay with it, actually. Simon, in Saudi Arabia, we just have a culture that hates women. Respect that. No, I'm good. Simon, in Russia, we just hate the gays. You shouldn't. Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. You can see the cold business reasoning behind it, you absolutely can, but it obviously wasn't sending a very positive message to the rest of the world. If they still do this, I'd love it if someone in Russia or Saudi sends me one of your catalogs. Let you know, please don't send me a bomb. They apologized. Okay. Another key factor for IKEA's international success is the fact that it has fiercely remained a private company and resisted the financial incentives of going public. After IKEA opened its first store in North America, the store didn't turn a profit for over 15 years. This would have been wildly unacceptable to impatient stock market investors, and the plug would have been pulled on North American operations years ago. But IKEA was under no pressure to appease investors, and the long-term strategy paid off. The company now pulls in billions of dollars every year from North America. Yeah, I really like. Going public's great. You know, you get super rich super fast. But also, you lose control over a lot of your stuff. That kind of sucks. Of course, there have been controversies along the way to conquering the world. For starters, it could be argued that IKEA hasn't been particularly kind to the planet over the years. As you can imagine, the company gets through a fair bit of wood. In fact, they cut down over 1,400 acres of forest for every year and use up 1% of the world's wood supply. That's actually remarkable. We need to use that word disposable again, but the reality of it is that the shorter lifespan of IKEA furniture means that alarming amounts of this cheap stuff just end up getting tossed back into landfill. Again, IKEA is aware of these failings and is aware of what it needs to do. The company has set up an entire separate division which has developed new targets for greener product sourcing, sustainability, and waste management. And I get why this is a problem, because people love cheap furniture because it's cheap. And it's easier not to spend that large amount of money for something that's going to last forever. Yeah, like clothes as well. Clothes are even worse. Like an H&M and all of these companies, where it's like you buy a t-shirt for £3, you wash it 4 times, and then the collar's all loose. It's kind of bad. This video brought to you by Mack Weldon. It's not, but one day it could be. Let me know, Mack Weldon. I'm actually wearing one of your t-shirts under here right now. It's extremely comfortable. This isn't sponsored by Mack Weldon, but their stuff is legit. Then there's the small matter of corporate tax. The structure of IKEA is a complex labyrinth of profit and non-profit entities which you can only assume they based off one of their own stores. Critics argue they just hope the tax inspector gets as lost in their books as I get in IKEA. Critics argue that the structure of IKEA is purposefully complicated to make tax responsibility as hazy as possible, and it's also been argued that the structure was designed to generously reward Ingvar and his family, who appear to control every single one of these separate entities. Well, it is a private company. Who else is going to control them? While leaving the actual company vulnerable to takeover. How is it vulnerable to takeover if the family control all of it? It's not a public company. That's going to be really hard. IKEA's tax arrangements are currently under investigation from the EU. Although there has been no evidence of illegal activity. Ingvar himself admitted that tax efficiency was simply an element of the company's low-cost culture, though tax efficiency seems like a very cheeky description. Well, is it? I mean, that's what it is. And this is the thing, like Amazon, like everyone in the UK especially, like anyone I know from the UK is like, oh, Amazon should pay their taxes. But as soon as they're like, oh yeah, well this book is like 50p cheaper on Amazon, they shop at Amazon. It's a little bit hypocritical. It's like they're passing the savings on to you in many ways and you're shopping there. Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. It appears that Ingvar and his buddies were always very careful to act on the right side of the law. Good, but the fact that a company generating tens of billions of dollars around the world has gone out of its way to pay as little tax as possible leaves quite a nasty blemish on the showcase dining room table. Regardless of how deep they put their hands into their pockets for the tax man, IKEA would have always taken over the world. Where their retail rivals have floundered and failed, IKEA has triumphed with patience, long-term strategic thinking, years of painstaking research of local nuances, cunning presentation, and refusal to sacrifice themselves to quick buck-seeking investors. Fortune magazine once claimed that it is IKEA's world and we just live in it. It's probably fairer to say that the world is an IKEA dining room table and we all just help put the damn thing together. We're all a team! Ingvar Kamprad died in 2018 at the ripe old age of 91, having changed the habits and culture of furniture shopping around the world forever. Rumors that he requested his body be broken down into bits for potential reassembly in the future have proved to be completely made up. By me. By Danny. Bonus fact. We've talked a lot about IKEA's attention to detail and shrewd strategic planning for international expansion, so it's only fair we briefly mention the time they completely cocked it up. In 1973, IKEA opened its first store in Germany, located in the university city of Konstanz. By all accounts, the opening day went very well, and the store is still there today. Good work, IKEA! The only problem was that they had actually meant to open a store in the city of Koblenz, about 270 miles away. and nobody at head office realized it was a mistake until far too late. That's actually incredible. The error usually gets blamed on the fact that Ikea was expanding so rapidly during this period that the usual care and attention briefly went right out of the wrong window, in the wrong building, in the wrong city. Or you could just blame Germany for having two cities that sound quite similar. Konstanz and Koblenz. It sounds like an excuse. But this might help explain why there's an Ikea in Rotterdam, but not Rotherham. Ba-da-bum-bum. This, oh god, has been Business Blaze. Thank you for watching. Oh, I forgot to mention it again at the beginning of the video. I'm such an idiot. I have a new, I'll stitch it in at the beginning so you've probably already seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I have a mailing list newsletter thing where if you want to get up to date with new things that I'm launching, new secret projects, stuff like that, maybe give me some feedback on new ideas and just be a bit of a legend. It's linked to below because the comments are a mess. YouTube's not that great for interacting with people who I can get feedback off and stuff like that. So if you want to be part of that gang, it's not a gang, there's no crime. Sign up below. Thank you for watching. Oh, you watched to the end. You're a legend. Of course. Thank you. Be a legend. Sign up to that newsletter. Goddamn competition. Ruining my business.